Don't look now, but the Big Ten tournament is right around the corner. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another Friday edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sonny Vermont. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. While you're here, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel as we continue on our journey to 2,300 subs. Find me on your favorite social medias. Locked On Illini. Say hello. Say something nice. Say something not so nice. Just say something. That's all that matters. Today's episode, it's Friday, so I kind of want to chill, relax a little bit, and I want to talk about the Big Ten tournament because Illinois, kind of where they're at when it comes to the standings, we kind of know where they're going to be at. And so with Michigan State's big victory over Maryland last night, I just kind of want to bring in another voice and just talk about what we might be seeing happen. The Big Ten tournament's just about a week and a half away, so it's right around the corner, guys. And I know a lot of you have been clamoring for a former guest to return, and I tried getting JR. He's not available, so in his place, I brought in Kent, Casual Big Ten. Kent, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, despite what the people actually want. I'm happy to be here, man, and talk about the Big Ten tournament. It's my favorite event of the year. This will be my third year in a row that I'm going, and I put it up there right with like opening weekend of March Madness, because if you actually go, you're seeing 15, 16 games in person, whereas the March Madness thing, you're seeing it a lot more and some crazy games, but it's all on TV. So once again, thanks for having me. I can't wait to talk about this, man. It's my favorite event of the year.
Yeah, no, it's a throwback to Casual Fridays like we used to do at the beginning of Locked On Illini. So I'm glad that you're back, Kent. Okay, so let's just kind of start talking about it. The format's different this year. Now there's a couple teams on the bottom of the standings that aren't going to be able to make the Big Ten tournament. If you had to guess which teams are going to be staying home for the inaugural 18 team conference Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, so I think that two of them are already locked up. It's
right.
Washington, which we've kind of thought throughout the season wasn't going to have a great chance to make it. There was like a week there or a week and a half where they started playing a little bit better, and I was like, okay, maybe they'll make a push. Not going to happen. They have too many losses now, not enough wins, obviously, to get in. And then I think that Penn State has cemented their spot at home for this week, for the Big Ten tournament week, I should say. After they lost to Indiana, they need a lot of help. They would need a couple people to lose out, and they have to win their final two games. And it's Wisconsin, and I'm blanking on the other one that they have. So I think that Penn State is out as well. And I'm going to say that Iowa, just because it's like that right now, I'll say that it's Iowa because it's like that right now, and because I think that they are the third worst team in the conference right now too. So I'll take Iowa as the third team that is not going to be in. And to be frank, I would like it to be Iowa. I don't really want to go watch Iowa in person. I'd like the other teams to make it. I'll be honest.
And can you imagine having this conversation a month and a half ago and not saying Minnesota being one of those bottom three teams? Like, what a job they've done turning their season around.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Johnson doesn't get a ton of credit. I think that people that really watch the conference recognize that what he does with what he has is really impressive. But what they've been able to do, the wins that they've been able to pick up, even going way back to that Michigan win at the buzzer, just really impressive. And I do want to watch them. And just going back one step, it's not because I don't like Iowa, by the way. It's because that my favorite player from them, Owen, is out. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's tough to get really behind that Iowa team right now because of what they're missing.
I'm just going to clip that part about you saying you don't want to see Iowa, and I'm going to make that go viral on social media. Let's talk a little bit about Illinois. This is Locked On Illini, right? That's what the fans are coming for. We seem to be kind of locked in that single bye situation. I don't really, again, the brackets can change a little bit, but how many wins do you think Illinois needs? More than one win or even a win to secure themselves a spot in the NCAA tournament, or you think they're pretty much in?
Oh, no, I think they're in for sure.
I agree.
Listened to, speaking of JR, I listened to a show the other night, and they basically the guy that he had on, Jason, said that they just needed one more, and that was before the last game. So with that Iowa win, I think that they locked up their spot and they're fine. But as far as the Big Ten tournament's concerned, I think you're right. They're going to be somewhere on that like single bye, but they can't obviously get up to the double at this point.
Yeah.
But I don't think that even if they lost their last 2 games or you guys lose your last 2 games, you're not going to be seeing them play on Wednesday either. So
No.
it'll be somewhere between that like 6 to 9 spot, I think, for Illinois, which I think is a fine spot. Like, depending on how it falls, can still make a run, can still get back to the championship, just like you did last year.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Especially, Illinois has got 2 games left, obviously, Michigan and Purdue. But if Iowa is a sign of things of the team turning around a little bit, I've talked about it on this show. My everydayers know, like, the team's finally healthy, and I've been talking about that for a little while now. The team is finally healthy, minus Morez Johnson. But when all their guys are at 100 or at least close to 100%, more often than not, they're the most, and of course, I'm using air quotes for this because I know some people roll their eyes, talented team of the two when they face off against another Big Ten team. So like maybe they can start turning things around, and if they get the right matchups, sure. If they go up against a team like Michigan, who we're going to talk about next segment, or Maryland, those are just bad matchups for Illinois right now especially because of the absence of Morez. But I mean, if they have other teams like Ohio State, they match up pretty decently with Nebraska. They'd match up pretty decently with. I think they match up well with Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's a team that, if Illinois is playing the way that they are, they can match up pretty well with. They could absolutely make a run like they did last year.
I think the best case scenario, if I was an Illinois fan, what I would be hoping for is that Purdue actually stays in that double bye spot and that you guys can get the game right before that. Because I've always said this about the Big Ten tournament. I think that teams that start on Wednesday or Thursday have the advantage in the next game because they've already played in that building. They already know what the environment's like. So if you get a game that's very, I'm not going to say easy to win, but if you get a nice, easy win in that first round on Thursday, you have that game under your belt, and then you play a team like Purdue, who's been basically falling off the face of the earth right now in that second round. I give the advantage to Illinois because of what I just said. They already had the game. Purdue's playing their first game. They're cold. They had to wait till Friday. They've already been playing kind of bad. That would be best case scenario if I was an Illinois fan. And then if you can beat them, you're right there in the semifinals, and anything can happen after that.
Yeah. What other kind of storylines do you think you'd be interested in with the Big Ten tournament?
I mean, obviously I start at the top. So like Michigan State is like the greatest story right now because of how well they've been playing. Definitely. And the narrative of like, they haven't played anybody and then they've had this really tough schedule and they've still been able to win all these games has been really fun to watch. And obviously, the buzzer beater the other night was incredible. So Michigan State. And then for me, I've really gotten aboard the Wisconsin bandwagon, and they've just been flying. I've been talking about this for weeks. Under the radar. No one's really talking about them. They're super talented. They can score with anybody. Very athletic, can match up on defense with anybody in this conference. So I'm very excited to go see Wisconsin in person, and I think that they have a legitimate shot to win the whole tournament.
Yeah, I already talked about Illinois being one of the teams that I'm actually just intrigued about in this tournament because of what I said earlier. Like maybe they are getting healthy and they're finally gelling into form right as we enter March. But for me, I agree with you. It's Michigan State Spartans. You're talking about, like people not giving them credit early in the season. Well, hand up, that was me, and I know Kent, I'll give you your flowers here. Like you were high on Michigan State early this season, earlier than anyone else I know. And it took me a while, but at this point, every single challenge that they've had to take on, they've passed and they've succeeded. So clearly they're the best team in the Big Ten Conference. Whether they win it all or not, there's still one more matchup left with their rivals. We'll find out. But Michigan State. I'm curious to see Wisconsin as well. Again, I think they can be a bad matchup for certain teams. I don't know if I'm as high with Wisconsin as you, because for me, as amazing as their offense is, their defense to me still lacks. And if they have an off shooting night, I don't know if they have the high floor because of their defense that other teams might have. Purdue's just, as you said, they're kind of in a free fall, but they still have Braden Smith, a guy who really does show up for big games. They have TKR. When you have 5 players on the court and 2 of them are potential All-Americans, I feel like that in itself, and you have one of the best coaches in the country, and let's give credit to Matt Painter. That's a team I'm kind of interested in as well. Indiana, I think you tweeted out a couple days ago, like, are they finally turning their season around? Any opinions on them?
Yeah, they're going to be in a tough spot, though, because I think that they're going to have a really hard matchup at the beginning. Like, as it sits right now, they play Oregon in the 8-9 game. Obviously, there's still some things that are going to change with these final 2 games or 3 games for some teams. But, I think that they are finally figuring out. They're the team that we've been waiting for all year. They've had all this talent. They've poured all this NIL money into it, and they just have not been able to produce the results. And now it's finally like, okay, well, they went to Michigan State and won at the Breslin Center. So that was a really big eye-opener for me. And then the last couple games, obviously, like Penn State's not a huge win, and that was even close for them. But I just feel like they finally have started to come together as a team. They put the Mike Woodson stuff kind of behind them and been able to focus on basketball, and it's been really nice to see. They're going to be dangerous for sure. I wouldn't want to play them. There's a lot of teams I wouldn't want to play, though, because of what you just said. Anybody can have an off shooting night, and anybody can beat anybody in this conference. That's why it's going to be such a fun tournament, I think.
Before the tournament, Illinois is going to be playing against Michigan on Sunday. And right after this, Kent will give us a little scouting report on the Wolverines. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing the future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan your child's future. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, if you haven't already, make sure you've hit that like button on this video. Next up, we're going to be talking about Michigan on Sunday. I hate saying this because I never really like talking nice about Michigan after that COVID season. But I mean, the job Dusty May has done this year, they're sitting at 13-3 in the conference, 21-6 overall. If it wasn't for Tom Izzo, you're talking about Dusty May possibly being the Big Ten Conference Coach of the Year. Kent, I'm bringing you on. Again, you cover the entire Big Ten in general, so I figure you're the perfect guy to give us a glimpse, maybe just a scouting report on what makes the Wolverines so good.
Well, it's been a little bit of a couple different things throughout the year. At the beginning of the year, it was really the inability for people to guard Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden at the same time, and they were running a lot of pick and roll action. I think that teams have, once they started getting film on that, have started to figure out what they could do defensively to stop that a little bit. And but overall, just like a really good team, though. Like, obviously, that's why they're near the top of the conference. You go back to what you said about Dusty May, taking a team that was like in by far dead last place in the conference last year and getting them to be on the level to still be in control of their own destiny to win the Big Ten regular season this year is nothing short of like super impressive. It's crazy, actually, to be able to do that in 1 year. Other guys that you need to look out for, though, are Trey Donaldson, really aggressive, big guard. He can shoot the three. He can also take you to the basket. I like Reuben Jones a lot, very athletic, like shooting guard. He didn't have a great game against Michigan State, and I actually thought that was the reason that they lost, because of his matchup and what Trey was able to do and what other guys were able, or Trey Holloman from Michigan State was able to do against them. But Reuben Jones, still a very good player. A lot of very athletic guys on this team. Everyone knows Roddy Gale from Ohio State last year. He can give you some good minutes too. So a very balanced team, a complete team if they put it all together. Their biggest problem, and one of the biggest keys, I think, to being able to beat Michigan is to put the ball in Danny Wolf's hands and make him turn it over, because he will do that a lot.
And another thing I noticed, a lot of Illini fans are familiar with the name Namari Burnett. This Michigan team is very veteran. Like, it's a
Yeah.
very old basketball team, and that's kind of, it makes sense why they are as successful as they are. They know how to play the game of college basketball, and so right now between Golden and Wolf, speaking as an Illinois fan, I just don't know if there's a way to really stop those two. I would have really liked this matchup genuinely if Morez Johnson was playing. I think Morez Johnson and Tomislav Ivisic at 4 and 5 is as good of a matchup for Michigan as you're going to find in the Big Ten Conference, right? Maybe outside Maryland also has the two bigs that match up pretty well, but without Morez, you're talking about, you go with the same starting lineup, is with Trey White starting at the 4. That's fine. Trey White gives you a different type of game, but he's certainly not big enough to take on one of the Michigan bigs. I can't imagine you put Ben Hummerkaus on one of those Michigan bigs just because of his struggles overall this past year. And right now, I really think he's dealing with some confidence issues. Is the key to stopping Michigan stopping those two big guys, or is there another path?
I don't know if it is, because if you go back to the Michigan State game, they didn't go inside a ton. Like, Michigan just opted to, we're going to shoot threes. We're going to keep it on the perimeter. We're going to have, some action that we're going to try to get to the basket, but we're not just going to go down to the block and post you up and try to get points that way, which I thought was a massive mistake on their part, because not as bad as Illinois, I would say, but Michigan State doesn't have guys that can guard down low either. And like I said, Michigan just decided not to do it. So if you have bodies, whether it's Trey White or whoever else you have, like you were just saying, Hummerkaus, throw them at those guys and just hope that they don't put you on the block and try to back you down. And they might not score that way. Cohen Carr was guarding them from Michigan State. He can't guard those guys. And he was checking Vlad Golden on a couple of possessions, refused to go down to the block and ask for the ball. So it might not happen, but if Michigan does do that, there is a massive advantage for them. And I thought there was in the Michigan State game too, just decided not to do it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what Brad does in this sort of chess match. I talked about this in the post-game show of Iowa when someone asked me about Michigan. And, originally I'm like, okay, maybe you just have to start Ben Hummerkaus just to have the size in there. But then quickly right afterwards, I was like, you know what? No, you have a starting lineup that works. And it doesn't matter whether you have Trey White or Ben at the 4 spot. Neither of them are going to be able to guard Golden or Wolf, should Michigan go with that strategy. So why not kind of force Michigan to adjust to you on the other side of the court? Michigan, as much as Illinois doesn't have anybody that can guard the two bigs, I don't think Michigan has anybody that can control Kasparis. So to me, the key to this game, the game script for Illinois to win, is for Kasparis to have one of his best games of the season, which he's completely capable of. Kent, do you think along those line of thinking?
Yeah, I definitely think that he can. If I'm Michigan, I'm probably putting Roddy Gale on him, I think, just because he's a bigger body and he can probably disrupt what he's doing. But KJ's way faster than him, though, so he could take him off the dribble too. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I don't think that they have anyone that can guard him for the whole game. So it'd be interesting on both sides what they decide to do defensively. I think that he could be in line for a big game. And if he's not, and if Roddy is the guy that's guarding KJ, who's guarding Will? So that's going to be a tough matchup for them. I'm assuming that if it goes the way that I think, it would be Roddy on KJ, and then Reuben Jones is guarding Will. And that would be a really tough guard for him because Will's taller, he's longer, he's athletic. They're both very athletic, but I think that Will could get to the basket on him if that's what they decide to do.
Yeah, along those lines, like for me, it's there's two ways that Illinois wins this game on Sunday. One is either Will or Kasparis has a game, one of the best games of their entire seasons, just because I think Michigan, as good as they are, will have trouble adjusting especially mid-game to something like that. The second for me, and this kind of leads to what we talked about earlier, is Ivisic has to stay out of foul trouble, because the minute he goes into foul trouble, Illinois is going to be in a big amount of trouble. You're going to have to throw in, Kerry Booth, and Kerry Booth is not nearly. He doesn't have the size to guard one of these two behemoths that Michigan throws out there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that would be a big ask for Mr. Booth on Sunday. I don't think that would bode well for the Fighting Illini at all. But absolutely, Ivisic has to stay out of foul trouble, and then you got to find a way to slow down Danny Wolf, and like I said, just kind of force him to do what he's been doing all season, which is put the ball on the floor and make bad passes, turn him over, get Michigan frustrated, and then outscore them. Basically, obviously, that's how you win every game. But I think if I was Illinois, I would want like a shootout. I would want a shootout with Michigan because of all the turnovers that they have.
Yeah.
Because of what I just saw with the Michigan State game, like I just think that there's more scores for Illinois that can be more consistent in this game. But if I'm Michigan, I want the exact opposite. I want to grind it out. I want to go down to the post, and I want to score at a high level of efficiency. Like points per possession will be key in this game for Michigan, I think.
It's going to be a good game. Michigan obviously has the Big Ten title in their sights. They're going to have their season-ending game against Michigan State. By the way, big ups to the Big Ten scheduling committee this year. They've got Illinois versus Purdue at the end of the year. Like a lot of just prime time matchups in the last 2 weeks of the season. So they earned their payroll this season.
Absolutely.
Ken, before we let you go, can you let the folks here know where they can find your wonderful work?
It's Casual Big Ten on Twitter, just doing all the tweets, following every game, giving you guys a casual perspective of what the conference is looking like. And like I said, in a couple weeks, I will be in Indianapolis sending out massive amounts of content, usually in the form of photos, but as much as I can to cover that tournament as well as I can from the section that I'm in.
Appreciate you, Kent. We'll have you back on soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than PrizePicks, the best places for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes, no waiting around. And PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, turn your game. It's always nice to have Kent back on Locked On Illini. If you want to continue the conversation with me or even with Kent, Kent is in the Locked On Illini Discord where we're talking about Illini sports all day, every day. So if you haven't joined already, find the link in the description. We'd love to have you. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Again, big weekend, Illinois, Michigan. It doesn't mean as much for Illinois at this point. We're kind of locked in the seeding that we're going to get. But what I really want to see is just the effort put out there. I want to see, can we keep the game close? Look, I'll be honest, I would feel a lot more optimistic if this game was in Champaign and with Morez Johnson. The fact that it isn't, it's in Ann Arbor and we don't have Morez Johnson, it's not an ideal matchup for Illinois, but it's not like I have the sick feeling that I had knowing coming into that Duke game. It's certainly a game that Illinois can win. Do I expect it? Probably not. I'm going to be very curious to see what the line is once the date gets closer. Obviously, as of this recording, the line isn't out. But regardless of what happens in the game, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Illini because I'll be going live immediately afterwards. Hopefully, we get to celebrate together. But if need be, we'll have a little therapy session together. All I know is I just enjoy watching these games with you guys and just listening to you guys celebrate or vent all together as a community after the game. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.